All right, 1 second here. All right, well, we're on holding by the book of Leviticus Chapter 17. Again, want to welcome everyone. Good to be back after all the holidays. Hope everyone enjoyed, whoever celebrated. We're holding by the book of Leviticus Chapter 17. We are still in verse 14. In the middle of the Orach Chaim Makadosh, the Torah says, as we said before, again, book of Leviticus Chapter 17, verse 14, Ki nefesh kol basar, damo ben avshoy, hu v'amar lebnei Yisrael, dam kol basar lo tochelu, ki nefesh kol basar, damo hi kol oichlav yikaris. So here, again, the Torah says that the life of all flesh, its blood expiates for the soul. Therefore, I say to the children of Israel, don't eat of the blood. Again, says the Jewish people, not the non-Jews, right? Even though we saw before that even stranger maybe shouldn't eat it, right, as well. But we hold that non-Jews can eat blood, doesn't affect them, right? It says that would a Jew, whoever eats, he shall not eat blood of any flesh. Life of the flesh is in the blood thereof. Whoever eats it shall be spiritually cut off. Normally by kares, again, by being spiritually cut off, we don't necessarily say that by a non-Jew. We say either they'll have a portion of the world to come, right? Which a non-Jew can't have a portion of the world to come, or not, right? If they are liable for death penalty for Noahide laws, which they didn't keep. Not every Noahide law that non-Jew doesn't keep is liable for death penalty. But if you didn't repent beforehand, liable for death penalty. Liable for death penalty. So this should apply to Jews, not to non-Jews. Now, the Orach Chaim Makadosh over here says, now it gets a little more complicated, gets a little more dodgy, maybe we would say, the English might say. The Orach Chaim Makadosh says like this. It talks about, what does the Torah here say? Again, the Torah says, any soul that eats the blood, right, soul of the flesh, right, speaks to the Jewish people, don't eat any flesh, right, don't eat flesh with blood in it, right, because soul is in the blood. So here, the Orach Chaim Makadosh makes a distinction. What's the distinction? He says you got to put your heart into this, you got to think about this, and that is, there's a difference between a behema, we call a bigger animal, let's say a cow, an ox, or something like that, and a chaya, right? What is a chaya? Usually a smaller animal, right? Deer, sheep, right? Would be called the chaya, not a behema, right? So you'll say, okay, big deal, right? What's the difference? What's the difference over here? So he says that the person thinks into it. Think about the influence, heavily influence what God does, and what God does with its animals, what God does with sacrifices, right? And what that means. Think about this influence of the one who's in control. Because essentially, God doesn't need sacrifices. God doesn't need anything. Right? Therefore, what? Why do we bring sacrifice? Because he told us to do it. And we said at the very beginning, book of Leviticus, that sacrifice is given because it's a pleasant aroma to God. Now, some sacrifices get eaten, some of them totally burnt up. Let's say like a burnt offering. What does that mean? What does that mean, simply speaking? That's a nice, pleasing aroma to God. Does God have a big schnoz? God's got a big nose. It's like, what a beautiful smell. Right? Doesn't Torah speak in anthropomorphism? Right? We speak about God in certain ways with, the way we can understand. Humanistic terms. We don't make God into human, obviously. God has an outstretched arm. Does that mean God has an arm? It's got a figure? No. It's got a form? No. Right? But it's talking about God's power, God's might. So what does it mean that it's a pleasing aroma? Simple explanation, Rashi says. Over there, simple explanation is you're doing God's will. That's it. A nice, a pleasant aroma to God means you're doing His will. You're doing what He says. God doesn't have a nose. Can't be, what we would think a nice aroma would smell like. First smells a nice smell of a barbecue if you're not a vegan. Or you smell the nice scent of, soup cooking, vegetables cooking, other things. God doesn't have a nose. So what does it mean? A nice smell and aroma, very good. It means you're doing God's will. And that's why it's pleasant to God. Now, does God really need our sacrifices? No. Allows us to bring them. Tells us to bring them. Sin offering, easy to understand. You did something wrong. Should pay. Should pay with your life. What the animal do to deserve it? Nothing. God says, I want you to take this animal, sanctify it. Maybe you repent. Should repent. That animal should have been you. That I can understand. And God's telling you, use that animal for that. Die. You got to tell me the animal didn't deserve to die. And it's not a punishment for the animal. Just the opposite. Sanctifying God's name through that animal. Very good. Very good. So he says, think about it like this. That God Himself, says Or Chaim HaKadosh, God Himself gives life to everything. Just read the beginning of the Torah. Parshas Bereshis, all about creation. Creation of the world. God said it, and it happened. Right? Let there be light. There was light. Very good. Spoke this last night in Pirkei Avos, in ethics for our fathers. Right? The word Vayehi, and it will be so, or and it was. Again, it's hard to understand. First chapter, creation, you spend your lifetime learning. Right? Because a lot of it doesn't make sense. According to our puny brains. Need to know a lot more. Certainly a lot more Kabbalah to understand. But, we'll ask one very simple question, which we asked before. God said, let there be lights. Right? Was it Thursday? There was light. Very good. What type of light was it? Physical light? Can't be. Why not? No sun. When was sun created? Fourth day. So Rashi says, got to explain according to the Medrash, it must mean spiritual light. God created spiritual light, put away for the righteous in the world to come. So you can ask the question, then why did God create it? Why would God create something and stash it away later? Can ask the same question by the great sea monsters. I don't know, some say it was a whale, some say it was crocodile, some say it was, I don't know, whatever these Tananim were. These great sea creatures. What did God do? Took the female, killed the female, salted away, right? And salted away the male for the righteous of the world to come. Right? Sudas Leviosu. The feast of the Leviathan. Right? The end of days. Or whenever that's going to be. Right? What does Raj say over there? If the two would have made it, whatever this Leviathan was, would have destroyed the world. Now again, an obvious question. Right? We're not going to answer, but it's an obvious question. That is, why would God create something knowing that if it would procreate and have offspring, it would destroy the world? Doesn't God know that? Sure. So why would he start one for the future and put it away, right? To the future. Kills off one, salts one away. Also a good question. Right? There's nothing in the world that's superfluous. God created everything with a purpose. Now, we might not always understand what the purpose is. Just figuring out recent history, what the appendix is for. Everybody knows if a person's appendix bursts, take it out. Danger to life. Right? But what's the reason it's there? Good question. Right? Science has only begun to unravel what it's for. Okay. There's one part of the body, everybody agrees, the whole point of it being there is to be taken off. And what is that? That's the foreskin. Right? That is the foreskin. So on the 8th day, Jewish boy, right? Welcome to the world, has that cut off. The purpose of that piece of flesh is to take off. That's clear. Right? It has no other purpose for a Jew. No other purpose whatsoever. And that distinguishes a Jew from a non-Jew. Right? There are 3 things distinguish a Jew from a non-Jew. That the Torah says it's a sign between me and the Jewish people. One of them is Shabbos. One of them is tefillin, phylacteries, whatever you want to call them. Right? The prophet tells us is a sign between God and the Jewish people, which means non-Jews shouldn't do it. Forbidden for non-Jews. Shabbos also, unless you're in the process of conversion. And the third thing is circumcision. Right? Bris Milah. So, there'll be a difference of opinion among doctors, every number of years, whether to take off the foreskin, it's good against cancer, it's not good against cancer, back and forth. What does the Torah say? I don't care, do it. 8 days, baby's healthy, do it. That you have an obligation to do. So good. Everybody agrees that part of the body is there to be taken off. No other purpose. No other purpose. If you look at other parts of the body and the inside, right? Many reasons why we have them. And what their purpose is, what their function is. Just so happens, over the years, they weren't sure what the appendix was for. They didn't have a good reason what it was for. Maybe they recently discovered certain things, okay. But everyone agrees if it bursts, you take it out. That's clear. Doesn't mean it doesn't have purpose. Doesn't mean it doesn't function. It functions. It has a function. Whether scientists figure it out or not, doesn't matter, but it has a function. Everything in the body has a function. So some things we know more about, some things less about. Whatever it is. Whatever it is. But foreskin, everyone agrees. You take it off. Now, why do we get into all that? Because here the Or Chaim HaKadosh says, God himself, what did he do? He gives life to everything. Everything he gives life to. Now, when he takes life away from that, it dies. Whether it's plants, animals, humans. Yeah, even if at the end of the day, Mr. S, the Satan, the evil inclination, the angel of death, whatever you want to call him, right? He takes the life out of the person, takes the soul out, very good, but doesn't do it without God's consent. The person has to be liable for a death penalty for that to happen. And that God takes them whenever he takes them. So the Satan, whatever you want to call him, that's his job. Can't go against what God says. Just like you see by the book of Job. Beginning of the book of Job, God says, all right, you want to test my servant Job? Go ahead. Can't kill him. Not allowed to kill him. Direct command. An angel cannot go against what God says. No such thing, as we say, as a fallen angel. Now, people will make the claim we just read at the end of the Parshas Bereshis. What about, what about the giants? Or these Nephilim? Right? These angels that, were in the form of humans and that they sinned. You said, see? Angels can also sin. Yeah. Now, I'll ask the following question. The Medrash says, now what did the angels say? The angels say, you gave the Torah to man. You created man. Look what man did. Look how many sins man does. Very good. If you would put us on this earth, we wouldn't fail. We would serve you. We would do what we're supposed to do. God says, really? Let's see. He says, okay, I'll give you an opportunity. So what did God do? He slapped them in a body. He put them in a body. Put the angel in a body. And what did the angel do in the body? Sinned. And lust for women of the earth. Can an angel do that? No. So how does that work? In simple terms, the angel is in the body of a human. The angel itself now becomes more human than angelic. That point's got an evil inclination. So therefore, it's not about, see, an angel has free will, this and that. Why did it have free will at that point? Normally, an angel has no free will. And it makes sense an angel has no free will. Why? Because again, go back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Bereshit bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. God created the heaven and the earth. Very good. Means he created everything, the heaven, everything in the earth. And then he put them into place. But he created everything. So if that's true, and God created everything, that's what the Torah says, how can anything that God created have more power than God himself? How can the thing itself try and quote unquote outsmart God? And think it knows better and this and that? No, God can take questions and different things. But again, they're programmed. So they're less superior than God. Which means they can't act out whenever they want. They don't have that type of free will. But what happened over here? See, everyone brings down this. See, angels have free will. You see by the Nephilim. Right? Literally means to fall. The angel, fallen angels. But I'll ask you a very simple question. If an angel, which really doesn't have free will, gets slapped inside a body, exactly what God did. He put the angel in a body. Now, at that point, when the angel is in the body, is the angel the same form as it was before? Does it have the same power, the same, DNA that it had before? Or has something changed there? They say the angel's the angel. Very good. Doesn't have free will. But what happens? Everyone throws this example out, but it's a little more complex than people think. The angel goes into the body. Once the angel goes into the body, is it human? You would say it's human. Or it's got many human characteristics. Okay. So as pure as that angel is, what happens? It gets overtaken by the body. And since it gets overtaken by the body, it sins. So God said, see, you think you're better? You think you're holier? You might be holier. But you don't have free choice. You're programmed. Now I give you an opportunity to feel what man feels like. That now they have an evil inclination, so you have an evil inclination now. how that works in the spiritual being in the body, good. Probably a very good Kabbalistic question, which we're not going to get into. Well, think about it. The angel's now more human. Once it's more human, it's got an evil inclination. Not just going to do God's will over here. Because now it's in human form. Not the same. If you tell me, which is impossible, but if you would tell me an angel comes to this world by itself, which cannot happen. An angel has to be in something, to be in this world. A soul has to be in something, right? In order to be able to move around in this world. Whether it's a rock, whether it's an animal, whether it's in a human, doesn't matter. It needs to be in some type of body, something, right? I mean, again, it could be a wall, it could be a rock, it could be other things, right? But it has to go into something in order to be able to move. Cannot move around this, cannot function in this world without some casing in it, at least as far as I understand. Yeah. So, in general, if that's true, then the angel, and this is really the question, the angel goes in the body, right? So if the angel goes into a human body, does it have the same status as the angel as it was? Or is it now made to be more human? If you tell me it has the status of the angel before, and nothing really changed, it's just the casing of the body, then you say the angels acted out. The angels have the right, the free will, but we know that's not true. We know angels don't have free will. So what happened? So again, without getting too complicated, the fact that it's in the body, what does the body do? It makes it more part of this world. It makes it struggle like a human struggles. Going through a fight of the good inclination versus the evil inclination. So now God says, you think you're better? Okay, I'll test you. And what happened? They failed. They failed the test. Because they're going to say, we're so much better than humans. You never should have created them. Because look at all the terrible things they're going to do. Should have given the Torah to us, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And if you were to put us down there, we wouldn't fail. We wouldn't fail you. We'd still serve you 100% just like you. What did God say? Let's see. Let's see if you're right. And God proved they were wrong. Because once the soul, this angel is trapped inside of a body, where does the body come from? What did God do? He created a human being from what? The dust of the four corners of the earth. Made it like a print, like a coin. Rashi says, and like everyone has the same print. Right? Okay, you have men, you have women, children, whatever. But they're all from the same printing press, all the same. Even, God forbid, children, let's say, that are born diseased, they have disease, or they're mentally challenged or whatever, still in the form of a human. They look like humans. Even if they're mentally challenged. They're human. Stick an angel in a human body, what happens? Yeah, this is really the crux of the issue. What happens? Simply, I would say, without getting into Kabbalah here, simply the body takes over the soul, takes over the power of the spirituality of the angel. So the angel, in a certain way, gets weakened. How can a spiritual being get weakened? Because it's not in its element. It's not in heaven doing what it's supposed to do. It's now attached to this world. Spiritual cooties, right? Spiritual cooties. The angel now feels what this world is like. This angel now has desires. Right? Again, practically speaking, how does that work? It's a good question. But the fact is, an angel is overtaken by the body. And the body, what does the body want? We always speak about this. What does the body want? Physical thing. It wants to go after the physical. What does the soul want? It wants to go after the spiritual. Isn't there a constant battle between body and soul? Yes. Till the person dies? Yes. So now you take an angel, programmed to do God's will, and now you open it up a little bit because you're stuck in the body. What does the body do? Ramchal explains that really Adam's given one command. He's given one command: whatever you do, don't eat from the tree. Right? Don't eat from this tree, the tree of knowledge. Give the one command. Very good. So the Ramchal, had he done what he was supposed to do, he would have, again, first of all, the soul goes in the body. Yeah. So he takes this unbelievable soul, greatest of his creation, sticks it in the body. Why does that soul not explode the body? Just from the sheer purity. Why doesn't that human being, first human, turn into a spiritual entity? Now, some say he was like a spiritual entity. He was just in a casing of a human body. But the fact is, we just said, God took the dust of the four corners of the earth from this impure world and put a unbelievable pure soul into that body. Now, technically speaking, if that soul does what it's supposed to do, and every second it's growing spiritually, really, it should have exploded the body. And then the body would have been, as pure as the soul. But, then Adam would have gone straight into paradise, straight into the Garden of Eden. That would have been the end of the world, finished. But obviously, it's not what happened. So what happens? The soul gets trapped. Once the soul gets trapped, the soul cannot shine like it shines in the spiritual world. The soul, as the Ramchal says over there in Derech Hashem, the soul can never shine like it's supposed to unless it's in the spiritual world. It will never shine like it's supposed to in this world. Why? Because of all the physicality. It's impossible. The soul can reach high levels through the body. True. But it'll never be as great as it was back then. When it was, resting under God's heavenly throne, whatever that means. So the only way to strengthen the soul in this world, you're going to feed it. Right? Seymour, feed me. Right? Little shop of horrors. Feed me. How are you going to feed it? You got to feed it with Torah. You got to feed it with mitzvahs. You got to be careful what you see. You got to be careful what you hear. You got to be careful in a lot of things. Very good. And if you don't feed it, what's going to happen? The body will overcome the soul. As we always say, you debase the body, you debase the soul. You strengthen the soul with Torah and mitzvahs. You strengthen the body as well. You uplift it. You elevate it. So obviously there's this constant battle. But if a person doesn't feed the soul properly, like most of the world Jewry today, what happens to the soul? It gets destroyed. Obviously not physically and not spiritually, but it gets buried. Like my wife's cousin said, someone once said, you're so immoral. You're doing, such terrible things. It's like you're in a pile of garbage. You need a snorkel in order to breathe, right? Eventually, this person became, an Orthodox Jew, made him think. A lot of people say, "Oh, come on, you're a fanatic, this, that." This person made him think. He said, you're so steeped in garbage, you need a snorkel in order to breathe. Good line. Very good line. But if you bury your soul through the physical world, what happens? You destroy it. That's why so many Jews intermarry, so many Jews assimilated, because their soul is starving, right? Their soul is starving, right? Soul is starving for Judaism. Very good. For Torah. for mitzvahs. That's what the soul's starving for. If you don't feed it, Seymour, come on, feed me. No. You feed it with garbage, what's going to happen? It's like a person drowning in quicksand. The only way to try and get out of it is what? It's Torah. Proper thoughts, proper actions. So the soul, in some ways, you'll say, doesn't have a standing, doesn't have a chance in this world. Goes in a body. And we are not in control. As the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says, right? It says in Ethics of Our Fathers, you're born against you, will die against you. Will Kaufman would say, in parentheses, still have to live. Very good. Still have to live. Do we have a choice who our parents are? No. Siblings? No. Socioeconomic situation? No. Many things we're not in control of. So the soul, you're going to say, the soul can make this claim and say, listen, you want to punish me and punish the body, it's not my fault. Look at the hand you gave me. Put me back in the world. 5,000 years, more after creation. People are so far gone. They don't know what sex they are. It's worse than Sodom. How in the world is this soul going to survive? So the soul can say, what do you want from me? You put me in this world. 1,000,000 things against me to succeed. 1.5 million things. And what's God going to say? Then you read the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis says, I breathe in the spirit of life. I give people life. What is life? What does the Torah say? Choose life. What is choosing life? Choosing Torah. Keeping a Torah lifestyle, whether you convert or not, doesn't matter. A Jew has to keep it. Okay. Non-Jew keeps what applies to them. Very good. God doesn't want you to choose life. Choosing life is doing the right thing. How do I know what the right thing is? Because God told us. God told us through his trusted prophet, Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeah, God said in front of 3 million people, trust what Moshe says. Because I said so. So people think they can reinvent the wheel. People think they know better, this, that, okay. God gave us the antidotes. He created the evil inclination. He gave us an antidote, Torah. We also need heavenly help as well. Okay. But he gave us an antidote. Very good. That's it. There's nothing else out there. Maybe there's a little bit of truth in a lot of different things. Maybe. But that little bit of truth not going to make someone righteous. Not going to get someone to stay on the same path. So therefore, God gave us the blueprints. Told us how to do it. Doesn't want you to veer off. Oh, but people are going to say life is hard. Life is distracting. Very good. So you got to be tuned in. You got to be focused. You got to keep your eye on the ball. Can't get sidetracked. Very easy to get sidetracked. Very, very easy. So God just gives you an opportunity. He put you in this world. Fix up whatever you need to fix, but he put you in this world. He wants you to strive. He wants you to work hard. Very good. But he gives you the opportunity and the way to do it. In the right way. Now, it's very interesting. You have 14.5 million Jews that don't know nothing about Torah. Most important question maybe they ever ask in their lifetime, mustard, ketchup, or a relish on my hot dog. That's where most people are holding. Because it's not their fault. Grew up in Timbuktu, right? Or grew up as a potato farmer in Idaho, right? No offense, anyone's a potato farmer grew up in Idaho. They grew up knowing nothing from nothing. What do you want? So, okay, certain things, what they do, it's like they did it by accident. They don't get a free pass for everything. Certainly not. But even so, we could ask the question, what's God expect? You go to their schools, you go to their gymnasiums, you marry their women. What do you expect? How's a Jew going to survive? Make it a little more complex. So I would say anyone who's an Orthodox Jew today also fraught with a lot of issues. Could have gone to the best schools, best yeshivas, best education, this, that. They would just walk away. How can they walk away? A lot of different reasons. But some, you know what? They walk away, they just want to be free. They're going to be shackled. Always constantly worrying about what I think about, who I hang out with. What am I learning? Am I wasting time? This, that. Enough. I heard all the schmoozing. I heard enough. I want to do what I want to do. But it's not about fundamental issues. It's not about, why did God create the world? Why did he create it in 5 days? And, is it a 24-hour cycle when he created the world? Or, how do you reconcile age of the universe and the Torah? They don't have these questions. Those aren't the questions they're asking. They're not asking any questions. They just want to do what they want to do. Not a question whether it's true or not. They don't care anymore. So they're going to say, how can that be? Now, there are a lot of different reasons that can happen. But let's say none of these reasons apply. So I would tell you very simply that a person just never enjoyed learning. Maybe they felt they had to. There was an obligation, but they didn't enjoy it. They didn't get what we call the geschmack out of it. The enjoyment. They didn't get it. Why they didn't get it? Could be any number of reasons. They weren't inspired. It was always doom and gloom. Do this, you're going to find hell forever. You have to have fear. Boogeyman's going to get you. Different things. So there is a claim. There is a claim against certain things in education today. In Jewish education. There needs to be more love of Torah. There has to be more singing and dancing. Feeling the inner sanctum, the inner peace of what Torah is. Someone mentioned on Simcha's Torah here. How do you get yeshiva guys to dance? I mean, Simcha's Torah should be an easy time to want to dance. Take out all the Torahs, going to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Tremendous time. Sukkot is over. Enjoying all that, all that fun, so to speak. And now, finish the Torah. You're so happy you have the Torah. So why can't you get a yeshiva guy to dance? Right? So rabbinical authorities speak about drinking. A person drank too much in Simchas Torah because of, getting into the holidays, this and that. It's a question about praying, Musaf, the additional service and whatever. So he says, how do you get him to drink? Sorry, how do you get him to dance? Just gave the answer. Give him a drink. I'm not saying to get plastered. Right? I'm not talking about that, even though, there are people that do. But I'm not talking about that. Drink a little bit opens you up. No, but this person, was half joking, but it's true. Some guys don't like to dance. They don't get into things. They're more like, I want to learn. I want to learn more. Right? Okay, so, I'll dance a little bit, this and that. You know how many bad decrees can be overturned by just singing and dancing on Simchas Torah? What an unbelievable spiritual day it is. And that a lot of people, just hire themselves out altogether because of the spirituality of the day. And some people miss the whole boat. Maybe intellectually they understand. Now again, we're starting from Genesis, starting again, got a new slate, new lease on life. What things do I want to accomplish? What am I taking on? Different things. It's a serious atmosphere also. I said before, with all the excitement, I guess it's more for a guy than for a woman. Yeah. But with all the excitement that goes on, and that's supposed to go on, how can someone go there and feel nothing? Or feel very little? What does that tell you? That would tell me they're spiritually sick. Because there's only certain things you can get to intellectually, but at the end of the day, how is it that even on the greatest day, forget about what happened last year. Last year was last year, okay? Right? I can understand people thinking about that and what it means and what it represents and all that, to go and, sing and dance, simple story, okay. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone, it's gone through the system, it's learned, knows what it is. And it's in a certain way, they're dead inside. Totally dead. But yeah, maybe they'll dance a little bit, whatever. They understand sanctity of the day. Can't get up and sing and dance on that type of day. You understand Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, yeah, it's intense. Very intense. Rosh Hashanah Rabbah, very intense. Final kvittel, final judgment. Okay. The other days, person can be that dry. That, yeah, it's all intellectual stimulation. Where's the joy? Because, hey, I get the joy from learning. I don't need to sing and dance. Something missing. Again, more of my Hasidic side here coming out. Yeah? But it comes to, something like this, and a person doesn't have the heart, and they don't feel it, something wrong. There's something wrong. We can easily say, come on, person had a hard time, the holiday's expensive, they're, behind on things, whatever. Okay. Yeah, it's very easy to be down in the dumps when you look at what's going on in the world and what's going on with ourselves. Very easy. You know what? Got to overcome that. Got to work on that. To the extent, my Rebbe said this 3 times last year on the intermediate days of Sukkot, that, when he was in London, London was getting bombed like no tomorrow by the Nazis, Mach Shemam V'Zichron. They'd be brought up and they rot wherever they are. There were students there and family, that was probably being slaughtered. So they asked for Moshe Schneider, the head of the yeshiva, blessed memory, how can we sing and dance? How is it possible to sing and dance when we know what's going on? The answer was, Italy, Mashmo V'Zichro can take our bodies, can't take our souls. Still have an obligation to dance. Now think about it. They knew their families are being destroyed. They know for sure, but probably. Word was getting out what was going on. Probably had a good idea. Their families were destroyed. So they had a good question. Really, is it possible? Even with all the destruction going around, and our families may be decimated, we may never see our parents, our siblings, that. The Torah says, I still have to dance, I still have to be happy. Right? There's no question how the Torah can command something like that. What if a person's going through a really hard time? The Lord says, I don't care, sing and dance. I don't care what your problem is. You got an obligation to sing and dance. And be happy I gave you the Torah. So a person gonna say, that's hard to do. That's what the students in Rabbi Schneider's yeshiva said. How is that possible? Seemingly impossible. Moshe Schneider said, this is what the Torah wants. The Torah wants you to sing and dance the way you should, regardless of whatever else is going on. Regardless. You could say maybe they're suffering from depression, what's going on and not knowing. There's nothing worse than being in doubt and all this. They hear all these stories. Does that change anything in the Torah? Does that change my obligation in the Torah? It's a good question. The Torah doesn't make conditions. The Torah doesn't say, I want you to, in the time of the temple, they always sang and danced on Sukkot when they were happy and everything was good. But remember what happened? Temple was destroyed and all that. Yeah, but even in the day of its glory, you got to forget about everything else. And think, you're in the Beis Hamikdash, you're seeing these great people dance and sing. Oh, you're going through a hard time. What do you think? No one else going through a hard time. Everyone else has it easy. Everyone's, whistling Dixie and doing the moonwalk, whatever, which I can't do either. Everyone's got it easy? Of course not. Everyone's got something. Some people have more, some people have less. It doesn't matter. The Torah doesn't make any conditions. The Torah doesn't say when you feel like you're in a good mood, do it. And do it to the best of your ability. The Torah doesn't tell me that. The Torah tells me it's the greatest joy you'll ever see. If you never saw, the Gemara says, if you never saw a simple spatial wave in the temple, you don't know what real joy is. Okay. But we're far from that. Good. So it's only, we're only, making something somewhat similar, but it's not even close. Okay. So what? There are no conditions. You sleep in the sukkah, there's a lot of noise. You didn't get too much sleep. All right? Still have an obligation to, you got to think of the bigger picture. What does God want from me? Now, a person will say, this is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. God cannot expect that, right? So good. There's a legitimate question. How can God demand you to be happy? Good question. But he's saying you have to understand what the day means. You have to understand what it represents. You have to understand all these other things are distractions. Don't you think the evil inclination wants you to be depressed? Don't you think the evil inclination wants you to say, come on, people are going to make fun of you. You study all day. You're a bookworm. You're this, you're that. You're wasting your life. Aren't there more important things to do than God? No. That's the answer. No. There's nothing more important. Now, you're not going to tell them to go shove it or stick it or whatever, You got to ignore what they say, but that's what the evil inclination wants. The evil inclination wants to take a sledgehammer and say, come on, spent all this money on your lulav and esrog. You don't know really how to shake it. People don't really invite you. You don't even really know what it means. Right? So why bother? Or you got other things you need to worry about. And then it makes you depressed. And it makes you sad. God says, I don't give a rat's tail what you're going through. I understand. But you know what? You got to pick yourself up and you better sing and dance. Now, how can God command that? Good question. But it's to your benefit. It's totally your benefit. Now, someone could drink a little bit, forget about all this, right? Someone could certainly do that, right? No question. Right? No question about that. But at the same time, what will we say? Got to change my mindset. See, this is the whole game. This is what gets us through life. Because the minute a person lights Shabbos candles, the minute they light candles for the festival, everything else that happened right before that, you're busy cutting, chopping this, that, everything stops. So now someone's going to say, but what about all those problems? How do I stop thinking about it? Good. Got to change the way we think. It's not an easy thing to do. Imagine, I saw some people over Sukkot, community up north, they're getting shelled. From synagogue to the sealed room, the houses to the sealed room and the house and this and that. A lot of people left the entire week of Sukkot, so they didn't have to have that problem. Yeah, people live through difficult things. So one night, first night of Sukkot, so one of my son-in-laws has a brother lives here, and his brother-in-law from up north was here as well. So one of my youngest sons, very friendly with his brother-in-law's son as well. So we went there. Whatever. We went after the meal. Went to hang out in their sukkah for a while. They were telling stories, different things. You wouldn't look like they were shell-shocked. Yeah. They were there enjoying the holiday. Now, is it easier when you have sirens going off? Sure. It's part of the reality, okay. I'm not saying it's a good thing. But you're sitting in a sukkah, the weather was beautiful. Right? It didn't rain. Wasn't so cold. Right? I mean, it's the latest that sukkahs can come out because of a leap year. Whatever. It was cool at night. And the last night was, it was a little nippy, but wasn't so cold. What wasn't 30 degrees. Wasn't like, -2 Celsius. So it wasn't that, like in the 50s. Right? Probably, let's say 12 degrees Celsius, 13 degrees Celsius. Right? Not so cold. Wednesday was so cold. Yeah, best place to be is in Israel during Sukkot. Yeah, I feel bad people in England always rains, right? People in Florida, it rains and it's hot. Right? Here it can be hot also. Sukkot's going to be in September, end of September. It can also be hot. Yeah, this is perfect weather. Perfect weather here. But again, what were they doing in the Sukkah? Lamenting, what's going to be this? No. Sukkot is Sukkot. Passover is Passover. Whatever's going on, okay. No one likes to have, anything held over their head, thinking, you don't know what's going to be, and there could be attacks, and this, and yeah, it could be. It's not pleasant by any stretch. But come Sukkot, you're sitting in the Sukkah. Sukkah has unbelievable holiness. That's why I don't bring in, pots and pans and different things. Because it's got unbelievable holiness. And the other stuff at that point doesn't matter. If you're going to say, very good, well, how do you shut off your brain to that? Okay. Because if a person knows what Sukkot is and what it represents, it don't matter. These other things don't matter. Shabbos comes in, everything else, who cares? Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Irrelevant. It's irrelevant what's going to happen. You can't do anything about it anyway. So wouldn't it be easy if that, everyone's doing great financially, the weather's beautiful, San Diego weather, nice and sunny, 75 all year round, very good. The rain so much. Everything's perfect. Nothing perfect in this world. We messed it up. Okay. Now, what's my mentality? So I would tell you, you go into a sukkah, it's freezing cold, it's hard to enjoy it. And it rains and it doesn't rain, it stops and this and that. Or it's piping hot. You got, mosquitoes and other things. Yeah, it's harder to enjoy. And sometimes you have to walk out of the sukkah because it's unbearable. Okay. But what's my mentality even if I have to do that? My mentality is sukkah represents what it represents. And the holiness that it has. And the great joy that we're supposed to feel. Even because God can't force me to be happy. Person has to work on their inner self. Whatever's going on, other things have to override it. Person can't be depressed on Shabbos now. Someone's going to say, what if you went through trauma? What if you went through other things? Well, okay. So those things have to be worked on. That's why you can't read Holocaust books on Shabbos, because you can't be depressed. Can't read depressing things on Shabbos. You want to read things that are uplifting, that uplift the soul. But we got to learn to change our mentality. Some person will say, come on, what do you think? It's so easy? I didn't say it was easy. But he can't bring the everyday into Shabbos. That's forbidden. Now you can say, what about having those thoughts? Okay, those thoughts are different. Right? We say, one of the songs we say here, Hurim Mutarim. What I think is permissible. Even if it's thinking about business or other things. Can't act on it. Shouldn't be thinking about it, but if you did, okay. Shouldn't focus on it. Very good. So how does that split second change? You're so busy getting everything together and this and that. I feel like you're going to collapse. You light the Shabbos candles, festive candles. The holiday came in, beautiful. All my worries have gone away. They haven't gone away. Evil inclination going to remind you of them. They have not gone away. Bills still need to be paid. Things need to be done. I'm going to get here, do this, do that. Still there. You got to think about what you're doing. I'm not even talking about Kabbalistic intention. You got to think about what you're doing and what it means and what it represents. Shabbos no different. Yeah, but it's hard and it's depressing and life. And you're right. What does that have to do with Shabbos, though? One day a week, you got an opportunity to forget about everything. All that matters. Forget about everything. Focus. God gave you an opportunity. One day a week for any Jew or Jew want to be out there. One day a week to tune in. He gave you that ability. It's an unbelievable thing. Say it takes time, it takes practice. Okay. But isn't it good to have a day off just thinking about all kinds of other stuff? It's kind of hard. You're living in a place that's getting shelled all the time or whatever. And threat of war and this and that, all kinds of things. Yeah, it's kind of hard. Imagine I was somebody that, during the war at one point for about 3 months had 3 sons out in the field. In Gaza. Oh, one was up north, 2 were in Gaza. Now I think one of them just went up north. It's in Lebanon, the other is probably going up there soon, on the border. Get a knock on the door. Your heart stops. Because who could that knock be? God forbid, it could be the army saying, sorry to tell you, whatever. Every parent's fear that they have a child out there. Imagine having 3. Imagine having 3. So I know somebody, whatever, had 3 out there. We got together. I was like, they're strong as fire. Believe that's what they should be doing, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You speak to them, you wouldn't know otherwise. Because they put up a good front. They have a certain mentality. Shabbos is Shabbos. Festivals are festivals. Let God take care of the rest. You're not in control, right? So I always say, the Torah is totally intertwined. And this is what he says. This is what the Or Chaim HaKadosh here says. God's the one in control. He's the one who prepares. He's the one who does things, right? In order that everything in the world, animals, plants, whatever, all these things get exactly what they need. They get exactly what they need to keep themselves alive. Now, they're born or they're put into this world programmed DNA. They still need to survive. So God gives the ability to survive, unless he doesn't want them to survive. And what does he do? And not going to go into too much detail because there are a lot of questions here. But what does God do? So he gives them everything they need. But what does he do? He created all creation. He created them from 4 different levels. What are the 4 different levels? Fire, wind, water, dust, or dirt. Right? You got things in the heavens. Right? You got things in the sky. You got things in the water. You got things that come from the earth. There are 4 levels. Right? There are 4 levels over here. Even though these are things we may know. Don't necessarily, think about it so much. But he says it's concealed. Right? To just flush this out a little bit. Then I'll take questions here. He says it's concealed from all flesh. What does that mean? So he says, in spiritual things, you got spiritual entities. They have a purpose. They have a purpose, whatever their spirituality is, whatever they're supposed to do. And these spiritual entities have influence, as Ramchal says in Derech Hashem. Right? Everything comes from above. So he says that's talking about what? The 4 legs, the Kisei Kavod. 4 legs of God's heavenly throne. And from there comes 4 things. 4 other things. The ones that can really carry the throne. What's on the throne? What's on God's heavenly throne? Face of a person, face of an eagle, face of a lion, face of a ox. Those are the 4 things, 4 faces on God's heavenly throne. What do they correspond to? Right? What do they correspond to? Says Or Chaim HaKadosh, 4 angels. The Raphael, one that heals, Michael, Nuriel, Gabriel, Raphael, forgot Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, and Nuriel. So you have the 4 faces on the Kisei Kavod, right? Meaning the face of a person, a hawk, a lion, and an ox corresponds to 4 angels, right, as well. And each one helps the other. How that works? Very good. This Kabbalah here. What he says, but these things also are in this world. Right? What's in this world? You got animals. You got a person. You got an ox. You got a hawk. You got a lion. But what are all of these? A person, right, comes from the human race. Very good. An ox is a behemoth, right? One of these bigger animals. An aryeh, a lion, comes from a chaya. Right? We said that's what we started with. What the Or Chaim HaKadosh says. What's the difference between a behemoth and a chaya? Right? What's the difference between, let's say, an ox and a smaller animal? Yeah. They have things like a lion. A lion's pretty big also. Then you have the hawk. Where does the hawk come from? The bird. And what do they all correspond to? Different levels of the world. Right? Afar, this world, earth, dust, right? Which is man. Mayim, you got the fish, right? Fire and winds. Right? Each one included in the other. So what does he say over here? He's saying that there's a tremendous influence from above. That's where everything starts. Everything starts from above. And God is allowing everything to be in contact or to be established through these four things. Through these four basic elements: fire, wind, water, dirt, or dust. But it's more than that. Because these four things of the four basic elements are carrying and holding God's throne. They're on the face of God's throne, all four of them. Not only that, they correspond to angels. So there's a physical aspect of it. There's a spiritual aspect of it. Right? And the two of them together correspond one to another. Well, a pretty amazing thing. So we just finished reading, again, Parshas Bereshis. Very good. So we finished reading Parshas Bereshis. All about creation and about humans and Noah, and before that you have Cain and Abel and whatever, all these stories. Right? All these stories. Here the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh says God's in charge of everything. But he took the most basic things, the most basic elements, and he used it to create man. He used it to create animals. He used it to create birds. He used it to create, other things also. Right? Lions, whatever. So you got animals, you got birds, you got this world, you got, in the heavens, in the sky. And you got four basic elements that have spiritual ramifications. Unbelievable spiritual ramifications. Remember, the Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, that the world is transcendental, meaning that what happens in heaven has an effect in this world. The test that we have, okay, we're in this world. Doesn't the angel of death go between both worlds? Isn't he spiritual? He's an angel. So how does an angel come and try and convince people to sin and all that? It's got to be in some human form or some type of form, right, to be in this world. So you see, it's kind of a hybrid, because what goes on here, and this is very hard to understand, right, very hard to put into words, but when a person does something, physical act can have spiritual ramifications. The Ramchal says it's like a person did something, all of a sudden it goes up to heaven, whatever they did, whatever their intention was, then it gets judged, gets slapped back down to this world, and then it has all these ramifications. You're going to say, what does that mean? Simple terms, then I'll take questions. Simple terms, what does that mean? Simple terms, it means like this. There are physical ramifications, what we do. That's easy to understand. Woman, God forbid, smoked crack when she was pregnant, kid comes out deformed. Not the kid's fault. Kid's not punished, right? Punishment comes later, at the age of 13 or the age of 20, right? Depending. But it can't be the kid's fault. Very good, but there are ramifications. There are physical ramifications for your actions. Now, there are spiritual ramifications. What are the spiritual ramifications? Let's say a person was with somebody they weren't allowed to be with, forbidden relationship. They have a child. What's that child? Called a bastard child, called a mamzer. Right? Say, it's a child out of wedlock. It's a forbidden relationship. God allows, for whatever reason, that child to be born. Okay. Now, there are spiritual ramifications. Who's that child allowed to marry? That child's only allowed to marry somebody in that same union or convert. Now, you're going to say, why convert? Why not a regular Jew on converts, regular Jews? So there are certain limitations. By converts, there are certain limitations. But in this case, this person who is part of a forbidden relationship, now again, it's not the kid's fault. Not the kid's fault. Now, the problem is this kid has a blemished soul. Because it came into the world in that way. Okay. Now, if that's true, it came into this world blemished, cannot marry a regular Jew. A born Jew. Why? Because the Jew has a pedigree. Because the mother was Jewish. So he has a pedigree. What about a non-Jew who converts? Their pedigree is blemished. Not their fault. Their soul was probably Jewish on Mount Sinai. Very good. But then it got messed up through assimilation, intermarriage, whatever. How does a Jewish soul become non-Jewish? Good question. Again, Kabbalah 101 or 101a, right? How that should change. But fact is, now they have to go through conversion. Now, is it their fault they were born a non-Jew? No. It's a reality. Whether they can prove that they're Jewish or not, or they have no Jewish blood, doesn't really matter, right? The fact is, right now, they're not Jewish. Okay. So they're at a, they are at a different level. Their pedigree, it's blemished. Again, it's not their fault though. Someone will tell me, come on, once they convert, isn't it true? They're like a newborn baby, so everything gets erased. You're right. Everything gets erased except for one thing, where they came from. That doesn't get erased. Where they came from does not get erased. The fact that they came from, non-Jewish parents, or whatever the case is, so they're blemished in a certain way. In this case, in order for them, they could marry a person in such a union. That would be the case, because they are blemished in that sense. Doesn't uproot everything, right? Totally doesn't uproot everything. A lot of things it does. This doesn't, right? Again, you might tell me, well, it's a technical issue. Okay, even if it is a technical issue, right? Doesn't change the facts on the ground. The facts are what they are. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of questions here. 1 second. Somebody asked the beginning. 1 second. Let me get to. Somebody asked, was the Mishnah before the Shulchan Aruch? Yes. You had the Torah, right? And then you had the Mishnah, which Rabbi Yehuda the Prince, Rabbi Yehuda Anossi organized. The Gemara is a commentary on the Mishnah. The Mishnah and the Gemara are what make up what we call the Talmud. And the Talmud came well before the Shulchan Aruch. Came well before the Code of Jewish Law. The Rabbi Yosef Karo organized the Code of Jewish Law like the Rambam, and went very much like the Rambam. And so that came later, right? That came a good 600-700 years later, or let's say about 500-600 years, maybe 500-600 years after the time of the Talmud. That's the order. Someone asked, can I explain the order from Sinai that the laws were passed down? And what does it mean a portion of the world to come? God gave 10 commandments to Moses, right, on Mount Sinai. Everybody was there. Some heard the first 2 of the 10 commandments, died, came back to life. Others say they heard all the 10 commandments, died, came back to life. Whatever it may be, that's what they heard. And Moses spent the next 40 years explaining to them what the Torah was. All the other commands. Right? Well, what was he explaining for 40 years? Right? I've mentioned this before. There are 613 commandments. Even if they're commandments we can't do today because we don't have a temple in Jerusalem and all that. But let's say, there are 613, there are 613 commandments. Good. Even if there are 613 commandments, how long would it take, even if there were 3 million people, how long would it take to explain enough what the 613 commandments are to 3 million people? So let's say you trained, I don't know, 1,000 people, 10,000 people. Let's say Moses would train and these people would train other people, and train other people. So you have all these people to teach the Jewish people 613 commandments. How long was Moses in the desert for? 40 years. Right now I got the Torah, he said 38 years, let's say. What was he doing for 38 years? You can tell me, well, he's teaching the Torah, very good. How long should it take? In theory, how long would it take to teach 613 commandments to 3 million people? 10 years? I mean, you have to have a lot of, people to teach. I get it. So get a lot of people to teach. How long can it take? 15 years? You're explaining the basic things of what the commandments are. Basic things. Shouldn't take more than that. So what's he teaching them? He had to be teaching the moral law. Because the Torah doesn't tell me how to do anything. Right? The Torah says, Leviticus Chapter 23, we'll get there one day. I don't know when. We'll get there one day. The Torah says you got to sit in a hut 7 days. Sorry, let's say better. You got to sit in a sukkah. What's a sukkah? Good question. What are its dimensions? Does it have a roof? Now I got to take these 4 things in front of God. It says palm fronds, nice smelling fruit. No one's going to think it's a lemon on steroids. Right? An esrog or a citron. I got willows and myrtle leaves. Tell me how many. No. What happens if the top's cut off? Doesn't tell me. What if they're dried out? Doesn't tell me. They had to be teaching the moral law. That's what took so long to teach. Otherwise, if he's only teaching them the basics, don't do this, don't do that, whatever. He's teaching the basics. It's not going to take that long. Right? So basically, if you go to the first Mishnah, Pirkei Avos, so the first Mishnah, in Pirkei Avos, right? What does it tell me? Right? Let's see. Yeah, what does it say? It says that Moses accepted the Torah at Sinai, Mount Sinai. And what did he do? And he gave it over to Joshua, gave it over to Joshua. Gave the entire Torah to Joshua. And who did Joshua pass it down to? The Zakanim, the elders. Who the elders passed it down to? The prophets. Prophets gave it over to the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, the great men of the Great Assembly. Yeah, that's the order. Moses to Yoshua, to Joshua, to the elders, from the elders to the prophets to the men of the Great Assembly. That's the order. Right? That is the order. What does it mean to have a portion of the world to come? Yeah, for a Jew, yet a non-Jew has no portion. Who says a non-Jew has no portion? That's a mistake. Non-Jews, if they keep what they're supposed to, they'll have a portion of the world to come. And there are Jews that won't have a portion of the world to come, depending on what they do. But a non-Jew's portion is not going to look the same. The reason it's not going to look the same is because they have less mitzvahs. Many, many less mitzvahs. So a portion of the world to come means you have more mitzvahs than transgressions. Yeah, and you're learning Torah at a level whatever your soul can handle. Right? And you're basking in God's glory. What does that mean? Can't tell you. But it means that a person made it to the other side. They made it to the point where they have more merit than transgressions. And therefore, all the mitzvahs, if the entire world would do a mitzvah with all the right intention, all at once, the entire world, billions of people, would not equal 1 second of joy and bliss in spiritual terms in the next world. Now, you want to ask me what that means? Yeah. I'll give one example. Imagine the feeling, person as a child. Imagine the feeling the parent has, or even the child. Even better. The child has, they bring home a perfect report card, straight A's. Think of what a person feels at that second. Or let's say a person's working on a project. Making, I don't know, model airplane, model something, whatever, whatever it may be. And they got the whole thing together and they put it together. It doesn't matter. It took hours, took days. They put it together. The thing works, looks the way it's supposed to. What's that feeling like? Think about all those feelings together. All that bliss that a person would feel. It's someone what portion of the world to come is like. Or think of it this way. If a person would keep Shabbos properly. Shabbos, as we say, me'ein olam haba, is like the next one. Because again, what's the focus? Focus is on Torah. Focus is on mitzvahs, right? Focus on sanctifying the day. Now, can you put that in humanistic terms? Very hard to. But simply we would say if a person makes it to the next world, there's going to be great joy that we can't even imagine. Right? So you're asking the question, the prophet says no one's ever been there, no one's ever seen it. So nobody really knows what it is. So my Rebbe would say, I never met anyone been in that world and come back. Yeah. So the way we would explain it is it's the greatest joy that a person can imagine in spiritual terms. In spiritual terms. Now, for a non-Jew, can they get that certain bliss? They could. Not going to look the same as the Jews, again, because they're at a disadvantage. Because they're not keeping as many mitzvahs. That's their choice. That 100% is their choice. They don't have to keep Torah. I mean, they don't have to, they don't have to convert. They have to keep what applies to them. Very good. Right? But otherwise, they have no obligation to keep more than that. So their portion is significantly going to be smaller in that sense. If they get there, if they do what they're supposed to do, good. Right? No one's going to say they don't have a portion. They'll have a portion. They'll have something in the next world if they do what they're supposed to. Problem is, most non-Jews are going to get wiped out because we're all idolatry. Yeah. So few Noahites in the world, if they know what they're doing and doing things properly, they should survive. They should have a portion of the world to come. Even if they're liable for a death penalty. Most people come to Noahide laws or want to convert came out of idolatry. So if there's no repentance, they're all dead. There's no point to do anything, right? But there is repentance. Right? So a person repents, they keep what they're supposed to do. They should have a portion, again, but it's not going to be the same. It shouldn't be the same. Right? It's not about discrimination. It has nothing to do with discrimination. We have many more mitzvahs. We can also, lose our portion of the world to come, potentially, or have a much smaller portion of the world to come, depending on what we've done. Yeah, it's a scary thought. Is God going to say, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't have the right intention, this and that, I'm going to zap you? No. God understands where a person's holding this and that. So if a person's on the straight and narrow path, doing what they could, to the best of their ability, they should have a portion of the world to come. Right? But, it's harder. It's much harder. Do non-Jews have the obligation to guard their eyes? I don't think so. I mean, I would say it's a moral imperative, but it's no obligation. What about speaking Lashon Hara? Doesn't really apply to them. Many things don't apply to them. Yeah, if Jews speak Lashon Hara, more than 30 prohibitions. Not only that, you speak Lashon Hara against someone else, you could lose all your mitzvahs. They could gain all your mitzvahs. Yeah, it sounds like the Matrix. I mean, how God's putting everything together here. Right? So it's a very scary possibility. So we have a lot more to lose. Jews have a lot more to lose. Could a righteous non-Jew have a higher portion of the world to come than a Jew? Yes. Possible. Depending on what they've done, depending on what the Jew has done. You're going to say, but they have less mitzvahs. You're right, but if a Jew seriously messes up, his portion, if he even gets there, could be a lot less. Right? So, we're working hard to perfect ourselves, not just about getting a hudzi, right? Not just about getting the reward, right? That's part of it. But that's not even the point. The point is we want to be the best people we can be. And sometimes we don't do that. And sometimes there's payback and there's punishment and other things. Could be in the next world, could be this world, could be both. Could very well be both. So it's catch-22. There are people who don't want to work, spit in God's face and just say, I'll have a smaller portion. Who says you're going to get there as a Jew? If you don't repent, right? If there's no tshuva, you won't get there. Right? Maybe you have one mitzvah you've done that maybe turns everything over. Maybe a person's done terrible things, but they did, one thing with absolute self-sacrifice. That could turn the tide. Okay. Right? We don't know how it works. I don't think anyone wants to take any chances either. So, we're not looking to have, just a small portion. You make the bed you lie in. You want the best that you can do. And that's hard under all circumstances. Hard. All the way around. Right? I forget who it was that said that there was a great rabbi who was crying right before he died. They said, why are you crying? I'm sure you're going to have a portion of the world to come, a great portion, this, that. He said, if I was going to a, flesh and blood king, one thing. Bribe them, convince them, this and that. But if you're going, if I'm going in front of the King of Kings, no shtick. Right? There's nothing to pull the wool over his eyes. He knows what the truth is. He knows what you were thinking. He knows where you were during when you should have been praying and learning and doing other things. So how are we going to survive that? We're going to need a lot of mercy. A lot of mercy. Rabbi once told me, he didn't say in the name who it was, but he said there was a great Hasidic rabbi that said it's going to take me years just to get into Gehenna. Just years just to get my soul there to be fixed up. And I can say, okay, that's, tremendous amount of humility, but, at the end of the day, we don't know. There are two guarantees in life, we always say. Death and taxes. That's it. Maybe not in that order. That's the guarantee. Do we have any idea, no matter how much Torah mitzvahs a person kept, they have any guarantee in front of the King of Kings where they're going to end up? Now, you can tell me, come on, if they're doing the right thing, going to the right path, don't depress us. They should have, a big portion of the world to come. I would agree. But, everything we think gets judged. Everything we do gets judged. Right? This is good for next Rosh Hashanah. Next Yom Kippur. Famous story with the Vilna Gaon. With Rebbe Elijah Vilna. His wife had a friend, and both of them pledged to each other. Whoever died first, they would say what's going on in heaven. So this woman died first, and came to the Vilna Gaon's wife in a dream. She said, you don't understand, how the heavenly courts, how stringent the heavenly court is. Remember, we were walking one day, walking on the road, there's a poor person on the other side of the street, and we motioned the poor person to come. He said, had we gone over there, we would have got unbelievable merit. The fact that we made the poor person come to us, we lost merit. So when the Vilna Gaon heard that story, he wrote it in the annals of the Chevra Kadisha of the burial society. So Rav Shach was the head of the yeshiva in Panovich of blessed memory, and Rav Cheskel Abramsky both said when they went to Vilna, they went to pray at the Gaon's kever. They went to pray at his burial place. Yeah, they saw the annals of this story written down. They saw it actually written down. So something actually happened. So the Vilna Gaon's wife said, they got married. Now, they didn't get married for what they did. But the fact they motioned him to come, they lost some of the merit. If they would have gone to him, every step they would have taken would have given them unbelievable merit. So, where we're going to end up, how things are going to happen, nobody knows. Nobody has any guarantee. You can say, but I kept Torah and mitzvahs to the best of my ability. Okay. That's what we want. That's exactly what we want. At the end of the day, God can say, well, you're holding a higher level. You're going to lose a lot more out for this or for that, so you suffer more, whatever. We don't know. No guarantee. That's depressing. Let me see. There are a lot of questions here. One second. One second here. So I mentioned the ox also represents Yosef. That's true. Right? The lion might be Yehuda. Eagle is the land of Israel. All right, whatever. There are deep things over here. That we mentioned. Eagle was also a convert. True. Someone asked, connecting, meaning allowing that blissful contemplation. Every fiber of your being. It's a huge feeling, right? But heaven's greater than that, right? That is true. So that make it a great mitzvah or not? Doesn't mean it's not a great mitzvah. Anything we do, even at the highest level, think about it. The highest level spiritually that a person does something. Yeah. Does that equal 1 second in the next world? No. That's the point. That's exactly the point. Is that, it's blissful, gives us tremendous meaning, makes us feel we're in a different planet, different atmosphere. That's all true. Right? That is all true. Compared to the next world, we can't imagine what that is. Right? You take all that with a lot of people. With a lot of people, you add that up. You add all that up. Does it equal 1 second there? No. But at the same time, you're going to say, well, it's not worth anything. Not true. It's totally not true. Person has the ability to grow spiritually. That's what they should do. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean anything in the next world. That doesn't matter. It's what it does here. And how God looks at it, how God views it, and how he's going to judge it. Very good. That's the whole point. Forget about what's going to happen later. What am I doing now? Where am I holding now? How does it affect me now? Because what about the next world? What about it? Like I heard someone say, well, when I get there, I'll deal with it. Well, it's too late already. So doing the best of your ability forces a mitzvah. The more you prepare, the better it is. Right? So it's not worth nothing. Certainly not worth nothing. Right? They go say, well, isn't that a great mitzvah? Sure, it's a great mitzvah. But you want to compare it to the next world, that's a different issue. They're going to say, what's the point? The point is you want to make yourself better in this world. You want to strive in this world. However it gets judged in the next world. Right? That doesn't really matter. Right? For us right now, how God's going to look at it, where we're going to sit, and this and that, and and all these other things, it's irrelevant. It's really irrelevant. It's what I'm doing. It's how it elevates me right now. And the fact that it elevates me right now, and it has an effect, good. What's it going to do later? I can't worry about that. I got to worry about what I need to do right now. Right? When I shake my wool, and I'm shaking it like this, and I'm shaking it like that, and I have higher intention than this and that, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's what I'm supposed to be thinking. How God's going to look at it, I got to do the best of my ability. Let God deal with it, how he's going to deal with it. Right? That's what I would. So is that a mitzvah? Of course it's a mitzvah. Right? No question. How God deals with it? Good question. Good question. That's why I want to do things to the best of our ability. Right? That's what we're doing. But our souls are ours. Well, whose are they? The soul, God puts every soul in every body. And he knows which soul to put into which body. Okay? God convinces the soul goes. The soul doesn't really want to leave. God convinces the soul and puts it in the body. Okay. Right? So the soul is given a message. It's given a purpose. Right? The question, what's the purpose of our soul in the body? Purpose is really to rectify whatever it's supposed to do, whatever it's doing here. The soul, but we don't know that. Right? So someone once explained to me that, a person's purpose in this world, something they have to fix up. Thinking about it like this. That think about the hardest thing in your life you would rather never do. You'd rather slit your eyes with glass than actually do it. Yeah. That's probably what you're doing here in this world, something to fix. Now, obviously, God's not going to make it easy, but we don't know what that is. Right? I'm not saying what I just said that, could be. That's what we're doing. Could be. Let's say someone would, rather slit their eyes, with glass rather than say thank you to someone. Or appreciate something that someone did for them. For them, that's very, 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 very hard to do. Now, again, someone pin me down and say, well, is that the purpose of here? To work on that? Could be. I'm not saying it is. Someone explained to me that's something very, very hard for a person to do. In general, it's probably what they're doing here to fix. Now, again, is that guaranteed? No. But the soul is here to elevate the body. The soul is here to draw close to God. That's what the soul is. Right? Again, we have to reach potential. The soul is here to reach that potential, right? Meaning to fix up whatever it's supposed to be doing here, but to reach whatever potential. Now, what's the $1 million question or $1.5 million question? Because I just upped the ante. What's the $1 million question? How does the soul know what it's doing here? It doesn't. How do I know what my potential is? You don't. Let's see, if you're a Jew, your potential is tied up with keeping Torah mitzvahs. If you're a non-Jew, either you're going to convert or you'll keep the Noahide laws, right, and do what God wants you to do even as a non-Jew, to elevate the body and elevate the soul. That's what you're here for, to attach yourself to God. That's what God says. I want you to attach yourself to me. And in the book of Deuteronomy, it says even if the Torah was in heaven, you'd have to jump up to heaven to get it. So that means you got to keep it at all times. Again, for a non-Jew, it's easier. You have less things to keep. Very good. Yeah, but at the same time, you still have an obligation to try and elevate the soul. Whatever a non-Jew has to keep, all the more so a Jew. So the purpose of the soul is to elevate the body, to draw close to God. The part of God is inside of all of us. How does that work? That's also a good question. If we say, God's not limitless, right? God's infinite. If God's infinite, how can he put a spark of himself in everybody? How can he put a spark of spirituality in everyone if it all comes from him? That's a good question. Very good question. Right? If there's a spiritual side inside of us, we're all created, Jew and non-Jew, created in God's image. Right? So God wants something from us. He wants us to draw close. Jew and non-Jew. Now, you can choose not to. Non-Jew can choose, or a Jew can choose to be, idolatrous and all that. They could. That's what God wants. He wants your soul to attach to him. He wants you to bring your soul back as pure as it was when it came in. Now, seemingly that's impossible. Or almost impossible. Right? But he wants you to draw close. How am I supposed to do that? Right? $2 million question. How am I supposed to do that? What's the answer? Torah. That's the only way. There's no other way to draw close to God except through Torah mitzvah. That's it. So we said before, maybe there's a little bit of truth in a lot of things. Okay, but it's not ultimate truth. How do we know what ultimate truth is? Because God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. That's how we know. And Moses passed it down to us. That's how we know. So therefore, the Torah says, I want you to be close to me. God says, I want you to have a connection to me. How am I supposed to do that? Well, he gave us a book. Right? So the soul is supposed to attach to that. But this conflict we said before. Conflict between body and soul. Good. There's always that conflict. Okay. And the body wants you to go after physical things that are bad for you, if they are bad for you. The soul wants you to elevate the body and the soul. So the purpose of the soul is to be close to God. That's the purpose. Now, not so easy today, because you're living in a physical world, right? But God gave us the antidote, right? So it is kind of hard, even if we say we're reincarnated souls, we have something to fix up in this world, we all have a purpose. You're going to say, but how do I know what my purpose is? Yeah. Does anyone really know what their purpose is? Deep down, they know what their purpose is? So you can say, well, I was put in this situation, that situation. Maybe I'm supposed to use these talents for this and that, maybe. Yeah. Right? No one knows truly what their purpose is. They may think, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, maybe that's my purpose. Could be. Could be. Now, when a person has to think, what am I here for? What am I living for? You know, maybe the person, the purpose in life is, no, it's not, it's not to suffer. That's not our purpose in life, right? The purpose in life is to enjoy the good that we have, to understand how to use that, but it's kind of difficult when we get tossed around and sledgehammer, right? Then we get thrown off track. If someone would tell me, okay, in the last 20 years, I'd have a total upheaval, be on 2 continents in 3 years, come back, and I'd be doing what I was doing or what I'm doing, I would say, I don't think so. I would have thought things would have gone differently in other ways. Okay. Right? But God has his ways. Right? And it fits me to a T in many ways. But I had to be tossed around like a rag doll to get there. And this happened. The other thing happened, how I got involved with converts, totally by accident. I mean, nothing by accident, but almost totally by accident. Wasn't something I was thinking about. I was thinking about more Jewish outreach, not non-Jewish outreach. I mean, it's not really outreach, but I wouldn't have thought that. But I had a lot of different things put me in a lot of different situations, a lot of hard situations, and this is what came out. Right? So now, someone, you could say, well, isn't that your purpose? Could be. Could be it's part of it. Could very well be. Yeah, we don't know for sure, but someone sees what they're going through and what they've gone through, and let's say they've had difficulty in certain things, they can give that over to others. Person's come through some sort of trauma. They overcame it, or they still struggle with whatever. They're an opportunity to help others who've gone through the same thing. Right now, I can say, well, they had to go through trauma through that. I'm not saying that's the whole reason. But a lot of people go through difficult things, and guess what? They're able to give over to others and give them strength because they themselves went through it. If you'd ask them, were they better off if they'd gone through it or not, probably they'd say no, but it makes them who they are today. Right? But, it is kind of ironic. Because you're going to say, come on. I had different ideas before I left Israel what it was going to be. God says, no. Okay, so I went into self-imposed exile, left, things didn't work out one place, went to another place, things didn't necessarily work out there, and came back. Okay. But doing what I'm doing, seemingly chance meetings, different things, and that's how it happened. Nothing's by chance, obviously. But how did God extract all that? How did it all work through divine providence? First, this had to happen. Then this had to happen. Then third, it's like playing ping pong or pinball, let's say better. So like playing pinball, you go bing, 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 and then you start, this thing, and then it snowballs and other things happen. Would we have chosen it? I don't think so. Most things in our life we never would have chosen. But they happened. Could be we did things to ourselves. Okay. Could be there are other repercussions. Could be. Yeah. But a lot of times you look up to heaven and you say, really? This is the way you worked it out? Okay. Right? Strange things. Is it any stranger than, Lot and his 2 daughters? and then comes Ruth, and then comes Moab, comes Ruth, comes King David. Also seems very strange. A lot of very strange things in the world. Very, very strange things. But guess what? Ultimately, they have some sort of purpose. We don't always connect the dots. Sometimes, God opens our eyes a little bit. We connect the dots. It's pretty amazing. And sometimes, just, you try and connect the dots, certain dots. You say, I don't know. I was in South America. I can't tell you what I was doing there. I can't tell you what the purpose was, except to cause trouble. Get thrown out of there. I don't know. Wife will say it was to give birth there and, have a mate for 6 months. Okay. Right? That I can't even, no answer. No answer. Yeah. But from there, I ended up in America. Okay. That's probably where I was going to end up anyway. Yeah. And then other things happened. Okay. Could have been a catalyst to other things. Could have been. But I don't. But when we see certain things, again, I can see my own life, certain things that seem random. I have a friend there, known for many years. There's a brother-in-law, the same neighborhood that I lived in. I went to live in New Jersey. It happened through this brother-in-law. I had a connection with, somebody, tried to find me a job, whatever, and that's how I ended up getting involved with Converge, like through the back door. Totally through the back door. And you can say, but you knew this person who knew that person. Yeah, but that wasn't in the cards. It wasn't in the cards. I didn't expect, I didn't know where I was going to end up. In fact, I ended up in Lakewood. Okay, I didn't think I was staying there that long. Whatever. But, became friendly with this person. He introduced me to somebody else. Yeah, when I was looking for something doing Jewish outreach. And that's how I got involved. That's how I got involved with converts, because this person was giving a class to people in Puerto Rico and in Florida. He would give a class, and someone translated back and forth and whatever. And then one day he called me up and said, I can't give this class, and you give this class. So that's how it started. Now, doesn't that sound random? Sounds pretty random. Not my background or anything else. That wasn't an issue. That wasn't an issue. But the way it all happened, I wouldn't have picked the way it happened. Not in a million years. I think in a lot of people's lives, they wouldn't have picked certain things either. A lot of things they wouldn't have picked. That I wouldn't have signed up for this. Okay, but it happened. Whether they did it to themselves, other things happened, it was beyond their control, whatever it was. Right? Whatever it was. But when you connect the dots a little bit, you say, wow. But each thing seemingly by itself is insignificant. You don't necessarily connect the dots. Right? So, okay, this thing happened, led to this. After this happened. We take 2 steps backwards, this happened, nothing happened. Okay. Sounds, maybe you did some of it to yourself. Okay. But these are the repercussions. This is what happened in the end. This is what happened. It's uncanny. It's because I have a friend here. It means he's got a brother-in-law somewhere else, and he's going to have a connection. And then, who knows? Who knows? The chances are very slim. Very, very slim. A friend of mine's brother-in-law was here a couple summers ago. I was reminiscing the story. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And he remembered the whole story. For me, it's very vivid. Yeah. It sounds random. You're going to say right place at the right time. It was a crazy time. It was an absolutely crazy time. Yeah. So someone asked, is so here to help person body return Hashem to its maker. The purpose of the soul is to draw the body and the soul closer to God. That's what its purpose is. Right? And the soul is there, to illuminate the body. But if you don't feed the soul, as we said before, if you don't feed it, then the body can't get spiritual nourishment it needs. So the soul needs to be nurtured through Torah, right? Through mitzvahs. And you have an obligation to return the soul as it came. That's why there's payback, because we don't return exactly the way we got it. Right? We don't. Someone asked which angel is representative of the hawk. Not sure. Um, uh, oh, 1 second. Um, yeah, not sure which one represents what that I have to look into. Um, Someone asks, but according to other sources outside of Chumash, somebody say the original wife of Adam was Lilith. Yeah, I spoke about that before. Did Tanakh talk on it, I think, on who that was and whatever. Others say Adam and Eve were created as a single being. Yeah, Gemara says that. Created the hermaphrodite, right? We call it hermaphrodite. Yeah, had both male and female characteristics. Yeah. Adam really didn't have a separate companion. The Torah says that. And Rashi points out, yeah, Adam went to all the animals, right? Seemingly looking for a helpmate and he didn't find one. Now, some say, well, carnally at the other animals. Tried out all the other animals. Yeah, is that exactly what happened? Yeah, good question. Food for thought. Food for thought. But yeah, the Gemara, 2 places, talks about how God splits Adam. Woman came from the other side, from the backside, so to speak. But then you run into the problem. It says God created from his loins, right? So God created Eve from his loins. How is it possible that Adam was like, male and female? That Eve was like his counterpart on the other side, right? So it's Gemara, I think in Brachos and Gemara in Eruvin, both say basically the same thing. How they learn the verse and why it's not a contradiction. I'm not going to go into it now, but it's not. But the Gemara over there in both places asks this question, right? In other words, if Adam and Eve were really one being, yeah, backside, front side, whatever, and then God split them, that doesn't make sense according to the verses, right? The verse says she came from his loins, right? She's bones from my bones, he says. She came from my loins. Very good. The only problem is if the Gemara says in their sources say that man was on one side, woman on the other. So how does that reconcile with the verses? So the Gemara has an answer. Gemara goes through this whole answer goes through the verse itself, explaining what the verse means and how that's not a how it's not a contradiction. Yeah. People throw this thing out about his other wife that he had, quote unquote. So, again, that people throw that out there. It's very good. The problem is, a lot of it has to do with with Kabbalah. So it has to be reconciled that way. But if I do remember correctly, I did speak about it once on Tanakh Talk. So if you go on my playlist on Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, I think I spoke about it once. I think I spoke about it once there. Yeah. All right. Something relating to Leviticus. Carrying a carcass of a pig makes it unclean. Does this include picking up a yogurt? No. No, we don't have this. It doesn't apply. Same thing today. Any unclean animals, even if a person touches it, you don't have the same level of impurity as in the times of when the temple existed. So, someone once told me, they said, we should go back to that. I said, great, we should. We can't. Why can't we go back to it? Because we don't have a temple in Jerusalem today. We don't have that level of purity and impurity today. So even if a person touched a pig that was dead, or he touched it alive, doesn't really matter, right? All the more so he touched it when it was dead, right? Make it easy. Yeah, he touched pork. He didn't eat it. He touched it. Make you impure? No. Do you have to go to the mikvah? No. Right? That doesn't change anything. In terms of, yeah, it's still an unclean animal, very good, right? But the fact you came in contact with it doesn't matter. Right? We're all in the state of impurity anyway. So even if you touch it, doesn't matter. But the person, if they came in contact with that animal, they have to go to the mikvah, doesn't help them. Going to the mikvah doesn't take away that level of impurity. So, a person's impure anyway, so it doesn't matter. Right? That's why we don't have a temple today anyway. We don't have red heifer, we don't have that level, of purity. So, touching something like that, it's not going to matter. It's not going to affect, anything. Someone says, you said the beginning of the non-Jew had no portion. No. One second, let me see other questions here. Our purpose is to have a relationship with Hashem, right? Right, but how are you going to have a portion with God if you don't have a connection to Torah mitzvahs? The only way you're going to have a connection to God is with Torah mitzvahs. That's it. Yeah, so it's okay for a non-Jew to get a horn and use it non-religiously. I mean, why not? Doesn't mean anything. Person non-Jew wants to do it, they could. It's no issue against it. Use a shofar as a harp or something like that. You can do it. Doesn't, not forbidden. Right? Definitely not forbidden. Braces, it says every plant or herb, right? Tree is for us. So all poison plants comes a later result of sin. Yeah. Yeah. In other words, at that point when Adam and Eve ate from the tree, so then the ground started giving forth bristles, right? So that they'd have worked the land. So yeah. So, everything that was there seemingly was good. Right? After the sin of Adam and Eve, yeah, things changed. Right? Then we had to work by the sweat of our brow. Same thing. Right? Same thing. So these things happen afterwards. Right? Happen afterwards. Sorry. Someone mentioned, I mentioned who the four, again, the bird around the heavenly throne was a hawk. One second, let me just check. I thought it was a hawk. It might be a one second. It's an eagle. Right? Seemingly it's an eagle, not a hawk. Yeah, sorry, not a hawk. It's an eagle. Some say it's a vulture. Some say it's a vulture. Whatever, for different reasons. So it could be, it's a carnivorous animal, right? A carnivorous bird. Some say it's an eagle, some say it's a vulture. That's why I said it was a hawk, but I think it's usually translated as an eagle, right? It's usually an eagle, but I just saw someone says it could be some type of vulture. Vulture as well. Someone says when Hashem split Adam, it's like Adam split. I wouldn't say that, but yeah, the whole thing. Again, like I said, the Gemara answers the question, but it's a good question. It's a good question because the way the Torah says it, it's very hard to explain. It's very hard to explain according to the verse. I mean, if, as the Torah says, she came from his loins, then that explanation doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, whatever the Gemara answers, the Gemara answers according to that verse how it makes sense. But simple explanation, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, so I'm going to stop here. I do this every Sunday. Usually 4 o'clock Eastern time. I think next week, I think the states changed the clock, so we'll go back to regular time for anyone in Europe, because all my classes, anyone outside of Europe is going to be an hour earlier because we just changed the clocks. So I think next week states change the clocks, so everything will go back to normal, but all the classes this week will be an hour earlier. So, anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As, ethics of our fathers, ethics of our book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wish everyone a good